Welcome to my channel, Learn and Earn, to live your life on your own terms. Hello everyone, you're welcome to my channel, Learn and Earn Academy, and today in this video we are going to talk about the COP24 summit, which was held in Katowice, Poland. Now on December 15th, at the end of United Nations climate talks, 200 countries decided to implement the portion of Paris Agreement which they signed in 2015 to limit the global temperature rise to below 2 degrees Celsius. So in this video, we are going to learn all that happened in this summit. So 2018, the United Nations Climate Change Conference took place in December in Katowice, Poland. It's a place in Poland which is basically a coal hub. So it was the 24th conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is also referred to as Katowice Climate Change Conference. It is on the name of the place. The most important outcome of this summit was that the countries have agreed on the rules for the implementation of 2015 Paris Agreement. Now, what was agreed in this agreement? Now, countries settled on most of the tricky elements of the rule book for putting 2015 Paris Agreement into practice. Now, this includes how government will measure, report, and verify the emission cutting efforts, a key element because it ensures the countries are held to proper standards and will find it harder to wriggle with the commitment. So, what does it mean? Now, 2015 Paris Agreement, there were certain rules which were to be formulated. Now, these rules lay the guidelines for the countries to measure their carbon emission. And once they are able to measure the amount of carbon they are producing in their particular country, they'll be able to mitigate it. They'll be able to take proper steps to stop the pollution or the carbon emission. Now, India has taken a stand that developed countries historically the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide are expected to take greater responsibility for climate action. Now, citing the principles of equity, the agreement asked them to take the lead in reducing emissions. Equity and differing responsibility were also earlier recognized by the Kyoto Protocol in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So, the global deal, which was there in Paris Agreement 2015, it was to be accepted by all the countries, and this is a process in which a common agreement is formulated, is being tried to be formulated so that everyone can come on the same platform and can sign this agreement. So what does it contain? It contains guidelines which will operationalize the transparency framework. Now, if you're telling a country that you have to reduce your carbon emission, it has to be transparent. You cannot tell one particular country which is still in the process of evolving or process of becoming a developed nation to take more measures than the country which has already emitted a lot of carbon. So these are the aspects which needs to be taken care. So transparency is very important. Now it sets out how country will provide information about the national determined contributions that describe the domestic climate actions. This information includes mitigation and adaptation measures as well as details of the financial support of climate action in developing countries. Now, all the developing countries are in the process of becoming a developed country. So, obviously, their requirement, their consumption of carbon will be more. Now, nationally determined contributions is the domestic measure, or it is these are the set of guidelines which will provide a country uh, a framework, a rule, uh, as per which all the companies, industries in that particular country will be regulated so that they control the carbon emission. So this is a very good measure which will be taken by the developing countries to limit and to produce less carbon. So basically, national determined contribution are set of information, rules, which the countries have to frame in order to prevent climate deterioration. Now, beside transparency framework, the Katowice package also includes guidelines that relate to process of establishing new targets on finance from 2025 onwards to follow on the from the current target of mobilizing 100 billion per year from 2020 to support developing countries. Now, as I have already said, emission of carbon is not a one day phenomena. It has happened since the past. In the developed countries like uh, America, China, now these are the countries who have already produced a lot of carbon, and because of them, the rise in temperature has already taken place. Now, you cannot compare America with India because India is a developing nation. India is still growing as a country. So obviously the requirement for energy in India will be more as compared to America. So the developed countries who have already contributed towards carbon emission, they need to compensate by paying an amount to the developing countries so that they take measures to prevent emission of carbon in their own countries. So it is basically the money which will be collected by the developed countries to help the developing countries to stop or to take measures to develop system policies so that they reduce, so that they emit less carbon. So basically it's a preventive measure, but every preventive measures requires funding. And as per the agreement, the Paris Climate Agreement, the developed countries have to mobilize 100 billion a year from 2020. So I hope this video would have given you a lot of valuable insight and would have made you understand the very important concept of climate change. So climate change is something which is the responsibility of the entire world, and there are countries who have already contributed a lot towards carbon emission. Now it is their responsibility to take the ownership, come forward and help the developing nations to develop systems, to develop policies so that they emit less carbon. Because as a world we are living together, if a climate, if a natural disaster happens, it affects everyone. If the rise in temperature happens in one particular region of the world, it affects not only America but the entire continent, which involves many other countries. So it's a common phenomena, so we all have to come together and then take proper preventive actions to take care of this problem. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.